وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين جل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف. اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم. اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. We continue our study of sections of fiqh according to Muhaqqiq Hilli Rahmatullah alayhi in Shara'i, which many other books also have followed. We talked about ibadat and uqud. Now we want to start iqa'at. You remember we said some actions need qasdul ghurba, intention of seeking nearness to God. Some they don't require. It's better to have, but they are valid even if you don't have qasdul ghurba. Ibadat need qasdul ghurba. Those who don't need qasdul ghurba either need a siqa, a recitation of a formula, or not. Those who don't need are ahkam, which we will have later, like qisas, hudud, diyat. Those who need a certain formula to be recited either have two sides or one side. If it is two sides, it's called aqd, it's like a contract, or if it is one side, it's called iqa'. So now we are discussing iqa'at. We finished ibadat and uqud. The first is talaq, kitabut talaq, the section on divorce. You know, divorce is something that in some traditions it is totally banned. In some faith communities there is no place for divorce. And there are exceptional cases that they may allow, but they don't call it divorce. They call it like cancellation. They say that it means that marriage didn't take place. Otherwise, they believe marriage is eternal. In Islam, there is divorce. But divorce is not an option. So sometimes I put it in this way. I say divorce is not an option. It's like emergency exit. It's like a fire exit. Yeah? It's not that from the beginning of marriage you think about divorce. Unfortunately nowadays, people, when they marry, their suitcases are packed. Anytime ready to check out. Either for a few days or for good. No. If you are not sure about your marriage, don't marry. If you are sure that this person is a good person, a reliable person, a pious person, then you have to build this life together. There are sometimes good days, bad days, but don't always think about divorce. Think about fixing problems. So, this is why Ayatollah Mutahari quotes this hadith from the Prophet, أَبْغَضُ الْحَلَالِ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ الطَّلَاقِ. The most disliked halal in the sight of Allah is divorce. It's halal means we have such a law in Islam that in circumstances that there is no solution, we have talaq. Because sometimes if there is no talaq, then people may even kill each other. There have been cases, famous cases, even in this country, that maybe someone to get married, maybe they killed each other, the wife or husband, or sometimes they split the church because of marriage. So there have been difficult cases. There has to be a kind of arrangement, a kind of legal provision that as emergency, like tayammum. We have tayammum, but tayammum is not an option. We have aklul mita. When you are dying, starving, there is nothing to eat except mita, for example, meat which is not halal. This is the only thing which is there. There is no vegetable, there is nothing, just there is a little meat to eat, not to die. It's possible. So, the best, the most sacred action is marriage. On the other hand, the most disliked halal is divorce. We have then two types of divorce. We call talaq raj'i and talaq ba'in. Raj'i comes from ruju'. Means there is chance of ruju'. It's revocable. Because as you know, there is a time that the divorced lady has to observe iddah. In that time, there can be ruju'. So, the husband who has divorced his wife may decide that this was a bad thing I did. So does ruju'. They don't need to marry again. This is like cancellation of the divorce. Okay? It's not that. If it is after iddah, they have to marry. They have to recite siqatul nikah. But in the time of iddah, there is ruju'. And this is because Islam want to give them chance to reconcile. Now you think about it. Now the pressure is over. Was it a good thing? Was it necessary? So you can go back. Ba'in comes from baynuna, means separation. Ba'in is irrevocable. There is no ruju'. It's irrevocable. Of course, there is one way that I will explain later, that there might be a chance of ruju'. Ba'in can be different cases. For example, according to many fuqaha, if a lady is ya'isa, means she has no longer the period, the cycle, then the divorce would be irrevocable. If they want to marry, because there's no iddah there, then they need to marry again. There are a few cases, some of them are not maybe applicable. Two cases which are very much discussed is when it's the khul' talaq or mubarat. These are also ba'in. Khul' is what you must have heard a lot. Unfortunately nowadays, many people quickly they say we want khul'. They don't know what is khul', but some people say we want khul'. Why? Because we don't want any chance of ruju'. And they want the certificate quickly. Because if it is revocable, then it would not be final till iddah is over. So some people say, no, we want khul', because quickly to finish. So khul' is coming from khala'a. Khala'a means to take out, to remove. For example, it is many times used for when you take off your, for example, if the soul is taken from body, khal or ruh or naz or ruh, or if someone changes his dress, you put on your dress, then you take it off. This is also called khul. Because Ayatollah Mutahari says, in Islam, husband and wife are hunna libasun lakum wa antum libasun lahunna. They are like clothes for each other. It means that husband should protect and cover his wife, and wife should protect and cover her husband. Yeah? So khul means a request of finishing this estate. This is the technical and literal meaning of khul. But what does it mean? There are cases that the wife has come to this conclusion that if I stay in this marriage, I may not be able to do my obligations. I so much dislike this marriage and this relation that then I may do haram. I may not observe the rights of my husband or whatever. And this is, they say karaha. There is such a strong negative feeling that she thinks she cannot be anymore in this relation. And says to the husband, and husband agrees, but there is badl. She says, I don't want my mahr, or I don't want part of my mahr, or I give something, and this giving of something makes then this irrevocable. Either mahr or part of mahr or something else. It can be more than mahr, it can be less than mahr, it can be equal. If they come to this agreement, then this divorce is irrevocable, is ba'in. But if the wife changes her mind and says, I don't give what I said I would give, then the husband can do ruju'. So then it will be cancelled. So there is a little chance of ruju' here. If the wife changes her mind and says, I don't give what I said I would give, or I don't forgive what I deserve. She doesn't need to give, she can also forgive. For example, says, you have to give me this much, I forgive. So this is called talaqul khul'. Of course, this needs agreement. Therefore, some people say, although the siqa is iqa', but it's a kind of contract. There is no ijab and qabul. It's not like nikah, that there is ijab and qabul. Something man says, something woman says. Here only the husband or wakil of the husband conducts siqatul talaq. But it is preceded by what? But agreement between two sides. So a woman cannot go to someone and say, I am not happy with my husband, I give my mahriya or I give this money, you do khul for me. No, he has to talk to both of them. If they agree, then they can do it. If they don't agree, and there are very exceptional cases that life can be dangerous, miserable, many things, then Hakim Shar has to get involved and exercise wilaya. That is very exceptional cases. Sometimes, for example, husband is very bad and also does not agree with divorce at all, and has his own life, whatever, and just wants to make this woman miserable. Then Hakim Shar may get involved. But not ordinary person says, okay, I do for you talaq khul, because khul needs agreement. It's, in this sense, it doesn't differ from raj'i. Raj'i also needs agreement, because even in khul, who is doing siqatul talaq? The man or his wakil. They have agreed, and then the man or his wakil conducts the siqa for talaq. Yes.
In this extreme case where the woman is miserable and she has to get full
Yeah.
how can the husband representation be present?
So, if Hakim Shar gets involved and the man doesn't give consent, then Hakim Shar has wilaya to act on behalf of this person.
So who is Hakim Shar, the murderer?
In our age, like marja, or someone that marja gives permission. But this is different from people who have wakala for khoms. This is very, very rare. Some people don't know this and unfortunately create trouble for people. Maybe if you ask marja, how many people in the world they have permission from you to do talaq of Hakim Shar, maybe in the whole world there is not 5 people. It's not easy.
Is it a prerequisite to ask the husband first?
Yes. Because the husband has to give talaq.
The husband is nowhere to be seen.
Then Hakim Shar has to look into it. He cannot just listen to the lady and say, okay, I do this. They have to try to see, can we find this person? As much as possible, they look for that person. They send messages, they ask people. If they lose their hope, if they come to clear conclusion, because it's not an easy thing, to separate between husband and wife is not easy thing. It's not something that even great mujtahideen dare to do. If there is consent, it's easier. Still it's disliked, but it's easier. But if there is, husband is not here, how can I be sure that this is not a fabricated case, or maybe people are exaggerating? So Hakim Shar has to look carefully into this and be sure that on the day of judgment can answer. I have had many cases that people came to me and they were complaining about some people that we were never approached, we were never for example, or things like this. They didn't give me chance to express myself, and maybe those people were not even authorized.
Is it not anyway?
Pardon?
Is it not anyway?
If that person is not authorized, yes. So, khul' is one type of talaq ba'in, which is irrevocable. The other one is mubarat. Mubarat is very similar to khul in the sense that the lady gives something, but the thing is that it should not be more than mahr, more than dowry. Plus, in mubarat, both parties don't like each other. In mubarat, both parties don't like each other, but in order to finish it completely and be no chance for ruju, the woman gives something up to her mahr, not more than that. Khul can be more or less equal. Khul is from one side, this is from 2 sides. The next section is Kitab al-Zihar. Zihar was a practice in the time of Jahiliyyah. In the time of Jahiliyyah, sometime when a husband was very angry with his wife, he used to say, you are like my mother, or your back is like back of my mother. Anta alayyaka dhahru ummi. You are for me like back of my mother. And zihar comes from zahr. Zahr means back. It's basically the same way that my mother is mahram to me, you are also like my mother. I can have no relation with you. This was a way to totally disconnect from their wife without even divorce. And normally it was done out of anger. When they were angry and they wanted to say something that later they cannot change it. Because for them it was very bad. If they say this and later, so they wanted to put themselves in a position that because of their honor, they can never come back out of it. It's a very bad thing. There was no chance of return for them. Islamically, this is wrong. And if someone does this, must give kafara. And kafara is to free one slave, if there is a slave. If not, fast 2 successive months. And if not possible, feed 60 people. And before giving kafara, cannot have relation with his wife. So this is haram. He has to give kafara, and before giving kafara, cannot have marital relation. This is Kitabu Zihar. We have also Kitabul Ila. Ila was another practice that sometime maybe still happen. People make a vow that either permanently or for some month, more than 4 months, I am not going to have any marital relation with you. So the man was sometimes showing anger and wrath by saying for a period of 4 months up to permanent, I'm not going to come close to you. Here, if the woman complains to Hakim Shar would ask him to break his vow or to divorce. You cannot say she remains your wife and you would not have any marital relation with her if she wants, because she is not going to marry another person. She may need. So Hakim Shar says either you break your vow or you must divorce her so that she can be free. And when he breaks his vow, has to give kafara. Then there is Kitabul La'an. La'an comes from La'an, cursing. But here means a kind of like mubahala. No one should accuse another person of adultery. But if, God forbids, a husband accuses his wife that she has done adultery, if cannot bring 4 witnesses, they would do had on him. They would punish him. Why you accuse? Even if he has 3 witnesses, they would punish him. One way was also to do li'an. Li'an means that in the presence of Hakim Shar, in the presence of a person who is Islamically legitimate and has qualities, he 4 times says, I ask Allah to be a witness that I am truthful in accusing my wife. And the 5th time says, may Allah's la'an and curse be on me if I am a liar. So 4 times he says, I ask Allah to be a witness that I am truthful, and the 5th time says, curse on me if I'm a liar. And then the lady can, if the lady doesn't say anything, of course means she is accepting or withdrawing. But she can say 4 times, I ask Allah to be a witness that I am truthful, and the 5th time she says, Allah's anger be on me if he is truthful. If she does this, then they are separate from each other. She will not be punished, he will not be punished, but they are separate from each other. it seems that he is not also going to be punished. Kitabul Itq. Itq means to free slaves. You know, this is a big discussion, and Allama Tabatabai also has a beautiful discussion in Al-Mizan about this. Islam didn't introduce raqiyya or slavery at all. It existed from before. It is something that existed from many, many centuries before. You have it in the time of Prophet Yusuf, you know, they sold him as a slave. It has a long history. Islam made few things. One was to stop enslaving people by attacking, or I don't know, someone is powerful, takes other people as a slave, and say there is no way you take other people as slaves. Only if there is war, a legitimate war, not any war, not war for the sake of dunya, for the sake of money, for the sake of power, for the sake of enslaving people. No. If there is a legitimate war with kafir harbi, not with believers, then if the people who were fighting, if they are arrested as captive with certain conditions, then it was able to be a slave. Otherwise, one option was to kill them, which Islam doesn't like to kill them. To put them in prison, Islam is not very much in favor of prisons, because prisons many times can create problems. And sometimes a person has one bad habit, goes to prison and learns many other things. So it's very difficult. Plus they cannot have normal life. Islam had this option that these people who were killing Muslims, but now that they are arrested, if they can forgive them, forgive them. Otherwise, keep them inside Muslim community, inside families, treat them with respect. They learn something and then release them. So, restricted all the ways that people became slaves into one thing, and that is a person who is fighting and killing and is taken in the war with certain conditions, and then said only these people are slaves, which maybe for centuries never happened, and then encourage them that if you have done something bad, release them. If you want to get Allah's mercy, release them. If you want to do some charity, release them. Give them money, give them freedom, give them land, so that they can start a new life. Instead of remaining all the years in a camp or being, na'uzubillah, killed. No. So, this is Kitabul Itq. And there are different ways that a slave can be freed. Sometimes the owner can free. Sometimes they are forced to free them because of kafara, compensation for sins. Or, for example, if a slave has a child and the father dies and the child is now inheriting, automatically the mother becomes free. Any person whose father or parents or child or grandchildren are free becomes free. So it's very easy to make them free. This is why in Islamic world it very quickly finished. We don't have slaves in the Muslim world for long time. Quickly finished. Another thing which is related to Kitab al-Itq is Kitab al-Tadbir wal-Mukatabati wal-Istila. These are again three ways of freeing slaves. Sometimes it is Tadbir. For example, a person can make in his wasiyah, after I die, my slaves are free. They become free. Mukataba is a kind of contract. A slave says to the master that, I do this, for example, I make this much money and give it to you. You free me. Then he would be freed. Istilat is when a maid then has a child. And then this child, if inherits the properties of the father, then automatically she is freed. People should also know that when we say maid, this maid is different from what today they call maid as a servant. This maid is different. This maid is ame, which means like a slave. Some people think it's servant and maid today. They are a slave and maid. That's a different concept. Kitabul Iqrar, confession. One of the ways to establish a case for the court is confession. Islamically, uqala, people, not a child or a person who's adult but doesn't have good mental understanding. An adult, reasonable, rational, intelligent person who understands what he's saying, if he clearly admits something, very clearly, then this can be taken, accepted as accepted evidence. For example, I say, I am not sleepy, I am not, ill. With full understanding, I say, I purchased the house from this person and I didn't give him money. So this can be accepted against me. إقرار العقلاء على أنفسهم جائز. When people admit something against themselves. I cannot admit that you owe someone. This is not إقرار. This is shahada, witness, that's another issue. إقرار على أنفسهم. I can admit something against myself. Then they would accept it. And sometimes, for example, if I say, I admit that I borrowed this much money from this person and I gave him back, they accept the first part, not the second part. Because you say, I borrowed money, this is إقرار العقلاء على أنفسهم. You say you gave him back, then you are doing إقرار against him. You have to prove it. So if you admit that you have taken money, they accept it, but now you have to prove that you have given him back. You cannot say, I say together. This is two facts. One fact is what you can admit, the other fact needs evidence. Kitabul Ju'ala. Ju'ala is again very common in Islamic banking nowadays, and they try to use it. It's like ijara. You remember we said ijara has two types. One is you rent something like a house, a car. Sometimes is that you are employed. Yes? You are ajir, means they give you money for your services, for your work. Ju'ala is similar, but the difference is it can be general. For example, I say, I have a piece of land, I want someone to prepare it for farming. Whoever makes this ready for farming, I give him this much money. It's not necessarily between you and a specific person. And also, in ijara, the money might be needed to be paid at the beginning, but ju'ala, when someone finishes the job, you can pay him then. Plus, ju'ala is something that you can cancel. Ijara is aqd al-lazim. You cannot cancel unless you have put in the agreement. or there was a problem that you covered. But ju'ala, in the middle of the work, maybe a person changes his mind, so has to pay for the work which has been done, but doesn't need to complete. So, okay, I said, you make this farm ready for me, I give this much money. Now, I realized I cannot afford, I cancel. Okay, you can cancel, but you have to pay the work that that person has done. Kitabul Ayman. I have 2 more books to finish this lesson, and then inshallah we continue next. Ayman comes from Yamin. Sometimes Yamin means right, yeah? Right hand, for example. Ayman can mean right hands. Nuruhum yas'a bayna aydihim wa bi aymanihim. But here Ayman is plural of Yamin in the sense of vow, qasam, half. Because Yamin sometimes means vow, qasam, half. If someone with the name of Allah says, for example, Wallahi, I am going to do this, with certain conditions, then it becomes obligatory. And if he doesn't observe it, has to pay kafara. Sometimes people, maybe to strengthen their willpower, they do yamin or nadr or ahd. Sometimes in order to, I don't know, show dissatisfaction, maybe they do against some people. In the case of yamin, what is important is that it must be permissible. If someone says, Wallahi, I am going to do this haram, this is not going to work. And also, if it is makruh, disliked, it's not going to work. For example, someone says, Ayatollah Mutahari says, someone says, Wallahi, I am going to finish this book today. Before I sleep, I am going to finish this book. Or by weekend, I'm going to finish this book. Okay, this is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's not haram. It's not makruh. Then he must do it. And if he doesn't do it, there is kafara. Freeing one slave, if there is no slave, or not possible, feeding 10 people who are poor, or giving clothes to 10 people, and if it's not possible, to fast 3 successive days. Nadr is different from vow. Nadr says, Lillahi alayya. For the sake of Allah, it is upon me to do something. For example, I do Lillahi alayya and usalli and nawafil. I will do nawafil to make it wajib on yourself. Of course, you have to be very careful. It's sometimes good, but if people sometimes get very excited and do a nazr that they cannot do it, and then you have to, if you break it, it's haram, plus you have to be kafara, but it's haram also that you break it. You have to keep it. So you have to be very careful. Nazr has to be something which is preferable. In yamin should not be haram or makruh, but could be mubah. But nadr should be always preferable, either mustahab or wajib, something which is preferable. If someone doesn't keep nadr, feeding 60 people, it's like fasting, or fasting 2 months, or freeing a slave. Kafaratul yamin and kafaratul breaking fasting of months of Ramadan are the same. There is something also like ahd. In Risala you find also. Ahd is also very similar, just the formula is different. And it says that I make this a covenant with Allah, I make this promise that I will do this. If he doesn't keep it, has to give kafara. Okay, alhamdulillah, we finished also this lesson, and inshallah what we have to do, we have to go to ahkam, those things that don't need any recitation. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin.